times have changed. I would like to imagine that those who are children of British Caribbean parents, be it from Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, or Dominica, versus those who might be of British African descent, say for example, your mom and dad came from Nigeria, Senegal, etc., etc., usually Nigeria. I would hope that there's no longer conflict in between these two groups. For those who do not know, there was a thing, this was a thing, and there is a difference. Now, to add some context, because my friend here, shout out to him, he runs a page on Instagram, the British Caribbean Black page. It's a really dope page on my British Caribbean culture in the UK. He had said that, I wish we would talk about this because a lot of people do not know the difference in between being British African and being British Caribbean. And it's funny when he said that because I had forgotten, when I was growing up, my first introduction to black culture in Britain was the idea that a lot of them came from Jamaica or came from West Indian countries. Now, embarrassingly enough, the reason I came to that conclusion was because of Gangs in London on PlayStation Portable, P2P. Y'all know what I'm talking. Y'all know that game. Y'all played that game when I was growing up too. But versus nowadays, a lot of the times when people think about black British people, they think of people whose parents were African or come from Africa. I think this is largely in part of because of Afrobeats. I think Afrobeats plays a role in this, the popularity of that. Then on top of it, I also think to a certain degree, the movies. A lot of our actors that we do have in the United States, reality are usually British African actors, So, but there is differences in between the two. When you go to Britain, the UK, the first wave of black migrants, if you're talking about a wave of people of African, I'll say black descent, were the Caribbeans, were the people who were coming from Dominica, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, etc., etc., etc. Antigua, Barbados, shout out to my Bajans out there. And they came there 50s, 60s, 70s, around that era, in the first waves. There was blacks in Britain beforehand, obviously, like every once in a while. But if you're talking about waves of migrants, they were there. Invited, by the way. From my understanding, they came there invited. Versus Nigerians and Western Africans just started coming, I'm going to say, in the last, we'll say, to be safe, about 35 to 40 to 50 years. Now, where the conflict comes in between these two groups, and what my friend was telling me about too, is statistically speaking, Nigerians tend to perform economically well compared to British Caribbeans. Or I'll say British Africans tend to perform more well in the education realm as well as financial well and being on the more middle class side compared to British Caribbeans, statistically speaking. And this has kind of been an argument sometimes in between the two groups. A lot of people who are British African will say that those who are children of British Caribbean parents or British Caribbean families, they're always poor. They always live in council estates, which for those who don't know, that's basically the equivalent of housing projects out there. And this becomes a thing. I think it's fucking retarded that there's even a conversation for this, because how is your mom and daddy coming from a country that the UK colonized, and your mom and daddy coming from a country that they colonized too as well, and there's even a room for conflict in between our two groups? Like, that's retarded to me. One other thing he also touched on too, I wanted to touch on, was him saying that they have been noticing that